Well, let's get straight to our panel here in the studio tonight. I'm joined by Balvinder Gill, former sub-postmaster in Oxford, who went bankrupt after he was accused of stealing more than £100,000. Vijay Parekh spent 6 months in prison after admitting theft, but had his conviction overturned in 2021. And Teju Adedayo was given a suspended sentence despite paying out more than £50,000 to make up a false discrepancy on her Horizon system. Good evening to you all, and thank you so much for coming in to speak to me here on the UK Tonight. I'm also going to introduce a professor who's going to talk to us about the legals of what we've heard today. Professor Graham Zellick, Emeritus Professor of Public Law and former Chairman of the Criminal Cases Review Commission. We'll be talking to Professor Graham Zellick in a few moments about the legal implications of what's been unveiled by the government today. Bal, I'm going to come to you first. When this started for you, you were just 23.
Yes. And
overnight, you were told that you had to repay a shortfall of £108,000. You had no indication until that figure was presented to you. Talk to me about what happened next.
Yeah, so it was just a traumatic day, which I think I'll never forget. It stains your memory at that age. I woke up and went that day with my wife to open the post office, and the auditors were waiting there. We went in and didn't know who they were. Began to set the store up to open. Once they made themselves known, they kind of blocked us out from the office. I was interrogated under police caution in sort of a good cop, bad cop scenario. I was put really through my paces, and I was just trying to defend myself. I didn't have any legal support, but I was literally just trying to think on the spot of what I could say to try and avoid whatever they were trying to do to me. I was told at the time that was a shortfall of £68,000. The area manager contacted me and jokingly said, "I'll get your dad to pay it, he's got plenty of money." I was really treated very badly. I was never allowed back to the office or to get information which I could use to defend myself. I used to have a computer in the back of the office where I kept all my records accurately on spreadsheets because, I mean, I was an IT guy. I came from a maths and computer science background. I like to think I was a pretty professional person.
And so that day, had you known there were problems? Did you know something was up with the software?
It was never right. I'd reported problems previously. On a previous time, an investigator came and they said to me, it was just after Christmas, and I said, you know, these figures are not right. And they came and they said there's £100,000 surplus, as in money which is over, which hasn't been sort of allocated yet. And I remember the gentleman connecting his laptop to the Horizon system and then telling me, I've fixed all the problem for you, it's all gone away, don't worry about it, it's been moved to a suspense account, it will all sort itself out. And then literally the week after, I was back to the same problems. And I remember asking them for more training and them saying, we've already used the budget for training, there's no more training, you should be able to get to grips. And at the same time, I had 2 post offices at the time. These issues were occurring significantly at one. Sorry, Sarah, I'm just getting a little bit worked up.
That's okay, take your time.
Trying to stay calm. But yeah, and it was very, very difficult. That day, it created such a rift in my family. My dad was a very proud businessman, and he felt, and what he was told, his son had dishonoured him and done something fraudulent, and word spread through the community. I mean, I was ousted. Myself and my wife, we left the house. We were kicked out of the house, literally. We lived in rented accommodation, just moving around from a few months here and a few months there. We were really pursued so aggressively to repay that £108,000. We were temping jobs. We were literally, I mean, my wife pawned her wedding ring. I mean, I remember times when I didn't have enough petrol to get to work, and I would sort of be praying that I'd just have enough to get to payday. And one time my car broke down 5 miles from work, to literally put my hazards on and just walk to work and walk into an office and try and smile. And, you know, there's torment and there's so much depth to this in terms of the suffering. It's hard to share it sometimes. Just when I begin to share it, other things come into my mind, which some things I haven't even touched for a while. So, excuse me. Yeah.
We really appreciate you coming into the studio to talk to us tonight. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Vijay, this is a familiar tale that we've been hearing for a long time, but particularly in the last 2 weeks since the ITV drama really brought this to the mass attention of the UK. Talk to me about your story. Where did your story start?
My story started when I decided to do a business due to my health reasons, which I had a back operation. So the branch which I applied for was going to be changed into a convenience store. So I said, no, I've lived in this area, why change it? Because then you'll have no post office in the area and you've got pensioners, they don't need to go far. So applied for it and got the contract in 2006. Had discrepancies come up regularly.
Big amounts, small amounts?
Small amounts.
To worry about?
About £8,000, that's the largest one.
It's big enough.
Big enough. And explained its situation. They said, with the area manager, goes, you can pay it back from your remuneration.
We hear that a lot, money taken directly out of your wages to make up the shortfall.
Which was taken out. Then in going on fine, balancing fine, then 2009, they came to do the audit. They were there well before I even got there, before I even go into the where the office is. They said, we're the auditors, and they wouldn't let me back inside behind the counters.
What did they find? What did they say?
After they did the audit, they said they found approximately £78,000 missing. So
How does that feel at that point? Because 100,000, 78,000, numbers you've not heard before, presented with you, as you said, about overnight. How does that feel? Your stomach must drop.
I mean, you've spent so much money, over £500,000 to try and invest in that business itself. Why would you take £78,000 to use? And so we had the investigators were called in. As the office was 3 floors, they took me upstairs without any lawyers or anyone sitting with me to ask questions, help me out. And that scenario of good cop, bad cop questions, as I don't know how I think they've been learning from the TV series sometimes, if you look at it. And then they just said, you are not allowed to set foot in the office. And they called in some company they have already set up to take over the post office. Within an hour, they already arrived and then took over the whole post office.
And you're not allowed back in the post office, and the next thing you know, you're in court. You admitted theft, which, again, is a familiar story we're hearing from so many sub-postmasters speaking out about this. They plead guilty. They admit another charge, a lesser charge, because they're advised that they'll get a lesser sentence. The judge will go easy on them. You admitted theft, and you ended up with an 18-month prison sentence,
Yes.
Vijay, of which you served 6 months. That's long enough for a crime you didn't commit. I mean, what was the knock-on effect of that? You come out with a criminal record, the impact on your life. Talk to me about what happened.
I've lived in that area where this office was for over 55 years with my father, mother, and I've got to know...
West London. Yeah.
I've got to know everyone in that area from when I was young. I mean, they knew me, my parents and everyone, but we couldn't live there anymore. We had to move out of the area to try and not anyone saying, oh, you're to my father or my brother or my family, that your dad or your brother's done this. So we moved out of the area. But it's really affected myself, my whole family, my dad. I even had a heart attack in between this, which is, it was a major heart attack, but I'm trying to recover from that as well.
Vijay, what we're learning is, you know, all of you are living with the stresses and strains of everyday life, and then this monumental strain on your life that you live with every day. You were part of the 39 who were cleared back in 2021, but as you say, you live with this and the ramifications of what happened to you on a daily basis. Teju, I'm going to come to you next. You had a post office in Kent, yes, and you had a shortfall of £52,000. You confessed to go with a guilty plea, which meant initially it didn't look like your case would be referred back to the courts. Talk to me about the legal wranglings you had. You know, you pled guilty. What happened after that?
I had to plead guilty because the way they were at me on the day they came, they've cleared the office. We did not look for anything. And it was them against me, basically. And they asked me to come up with a story as to the missing money. And I
your
said...
story was you didn't know.
I said...
You didn't know what had happened, and they wouldn't accept that.
I didn't know.
They said you had to make something up.
They said I have to make something up, how the money went missing. And I was fighting them as this happened before. They told me, no, it has never happened. Have you heard it somewhere else? I said, no. So it's peculiar to you. At that time, I was really, like, almost raising my voice with them. And the customers were coming in to the side of the convenience store. And they were asking me, oh, Tara, are you okay? Teju, are you okay? I said, no. You know, and they must have said, OK, is there a place where we can go and talk? So we went and talked in the flat upstairs. And there they started going on at me. What happened to the money? You must come up with a story as to where the money is. If you pay it back, all this will go away and you won't hear anything about it. And I couldn't tell them because I know I have worksheets that we've been obviously recording what's going on with the computer. And I said, I expected us to find something. My assistant was there. And eventually, they said to me, if you don't, you will go to prison for 2 or 3 years. I've got 3 young children. And I was like... How old
were your children at the time?
The youngest must be, what, 7? Primary 4? And the oldest just started secondary school. So I was like, no, I've got girls. I've got children. I can't go to prison. They said, well, you will, unless you come up with a story. If you pay it back, all this will go away. So in my head, we were at it. We were wrangling from 8:30 till about 3 when I said to them, can I go and arrange for somebody to pick my children up? That was the only time when I had the break. So I went there. I got somebody to go and pick the kids up. And when I came back, I thought to myself, if you don't play ball, you are going to be put away to prison.
You were forced in that situation, and as we've heard, you know, throughout the coverage of this recently, is that you were all told you were on your own.
Yes.
There was no other post office that was experiencing these discrepancies.
No.
And thank you so much for coming on to tell your stories, because it's really important to keep at the heart of this story the human element of it. There's the politics and the legals. Yes. But Teju, you had 3 young girls. Talk to me about the impact on your family. What was that like for your children?
When it comes to my children, I'm a different person. I was actually thinking, because my lawyer said, you need to be clear with your kids because you might not come back. And the day before, all along, I was hiding it from them. And the day before I went to court, I was actually taken to the magistrate court, but the magistrate court could not handle it. They could not sentence me because of the amount. They've transferred my case to Maidstone Crown Court. And I called my oldest and I said, look, Mom is going to court.
Teju, we've got you.
Right. Sorry.
We've got you.
Yeah. Mom is going to court and I might not come back.
Okay.
I want you to know how to deal with washing machine. Make sure this is an alarm.
Practical mum mode.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is an alarm. Wake your children, your sisters up. Make sure you go to school and make sure you do your homework. It might not be long. Mom will be back home, but please do not skip, because she was having problems at school already. All this going backwards and forward. She could pick it. So she was already, you know, like being told off at school. They couldn't handle what was going on or help her. So it was so difficult for all of us. And I went to court, and the judge said, because I've been doing the remortgage, I've applied for my remortgage and everything, and I've got the children, he's not going to send me to prison.
Yeah, you were given a 50-week sentence, suspended for 2 years,
For 2 years.
and ordered to complete 200 hours community service, which you did.
I did.
Val, I mean, that's the other part of the story, isn't it? The ripple effect, the family and the friends and the loved ones who are affected by this, and your mental health. I mean, you know, there's the financial implications, losing your livelihood, your home, all of that. What toll does it take on you?
Gosh, the first decade, I mean, we're talking 2 decades now, the first decade for me was depression. I just hid everything, you know, I was so numb, couldn't smile, like you just have to put an act on, can't really go in physical, in places where there's too many people, or you intentionally miss occasions like weddings and birthdays just because you have to act and you're not comfortable in your own skin. I used to have really strong suicidal impulses, and I have to bounce them onto the second thought. So things like, you know, maybe it's easier just to, you know, this is like you're living in hell, but maybe there's an alternative somewhere, and an impulse like that. But over time, it manifested. I developed. Then I had manic episodes. I had mania 3 times in the most recent period of my life, which time I was sectioned 3 times, and each time just literally remember coming back to my senses at some point. I remember at one point I was being asked by the mental health experts what they thought I wanted to say, and I said, look, I've been pursued by a government-owned agency, post office, and I looked back now and I've seen it's been put down as delusions of grandeur. And, you know, like, it's so hard for people to understand what we actually went through. And those times were chaotic for me. And there's times when I didn't think I'd ever get my sanity back. So I'm just grateful today to be here, and grateful to people out there right now who are listening to us, you know, giving us a voice again. So.
Well, do you know what, Val? We're grateful that you're with us and that you were strong enough to come through this, because sadly, there are those who weren't strong enough to come through it.
Yes.
And they should be remembered in all of this as well.